Have you ever felt it? A profound and terrifying sense of alienation from the very world you're supposed to call home. You look at the values your society celebrates, the virtues it praises, the goals it encourages you to pursue, and you feel a deep, instinctual and often shameful sense of revulsion. You watch the frantic, passionate pursuits of others, their desperate scramble for status, their obsession with fleeting trends, their fierce devotion to the comforting pieties of the collective, and you feel not a sense of superiority, but a deep, chilling sense of being a different species altogether. You are a wolf living in a world of sheep, an eagle trapped in a chicken coop, a solitary stargazer in a civilization of navel-gazers. You have likely spent much of your life believing that this is a flaw within you. You have been told, in 1,000 subtle and not-so-subtle ways, that you are too critical, too intense, too cynical, that you don't know how to just be happy. You have tried to adapt, to mute your own perceptions, to feign interest in the mundane, to smile and nod at the shared illusions that everyone else seems to find so comforting. You have tried to shrink yourself, to domesticate your own wild soul, to fit into the small, safe and soul-crushing cage of social normalcy. But the feeling persists, the chasm remains, and you are left with a haunting and terrible question: what is wrong with me? But what if the problem is not that you are sick, but that you are healthy in a profoundly sick society? What if your alienation is not a sign of your failure, but a sign of your strength? What if the reason you are at odds with the world is because you are one of the few who are beginning to see it for what it truly is? This is the radical, terrifying, and ultimately liberating warning of the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche was not a builder of comforting systems. He was a dynamiter of them. He was a physician of the soul who took it upon himself to diagnose the deep hidden sickness of our modern, civilized world, and his diagnosis was stark and uncompromising. Society, as it is currently constituted, is a vast and intricate conspiracy against the noble, the strong, and the independent mind. It is a system designed to tame, to level, and to ultimately extinguish the very flame of human greatness. To be at odds with such a society is not a sign of your pathology. It is the first, necessary, and heroic sign that you are beginning to become who you truly are. The great inversion, the triumph of the herd, and the birth of the good man. To understand this conflict, you must first understand Nietzsche's radical and deeply unsettling genealogy of our modern values. We believe that our concepts of good and evil are timeless, absolute, and self-evident. Nietzsche saw them as a historical invention, a brilliant and devastatingly effective psychological weapon. In the ancient pre-moral world, Nietzsche argued, good was simply a descriptor for the qualities of the noble, the strong, the powerful, the life-affirming. The good man was the warrior, the creator, the one who said a triumphant yes to life in all its chaotic, beautiful, and terrible glory. Bad was simply a descriptor for the common, the weak, the slavish, the impotent. This was the master morality. But a great and terrible event occurred in human history, the slave revolt in morality. The weak, the resentful, the impotent masses, unable to compete on the terms of the strong, performed a brilliant act of psychological revenge. They could not become eagles, so they decided to declare the eagle evil. They took all of their own qualities, their humility, their pity, their meekness, their turning of the other cheek, and they rebranded them as virtues. They took all the qualities of the masters, their pride, their strength, their ambition, their joy in life, and they rebranded them as sins. This is the birth of the slave morality, the morality of the herd. And it is this morality, Nietzsche declared, that has triumphed and now governs the very soul of Western civilization. Society is the institutionalization of this herd morality. Its primary function is not to elevate the exceptional individual, but to protect the mediocre majority from them. It is a vast and intricate system designed to tame the wild, powerful, and independent spirit, to turn the eagle into a domesticated, predictable, and useful chicken. It does this through 1,000 subtle and not-so-subtle mechanisms. Through its educational systems that reward compliance over creativity, through its media that celebrates the shallow and the sensational, through its religions that praise the meek and the humble, and through its social codes that demand a gentle, agreeable, and inoffensive conformity. The independent mind is, by its very nature, a direct and existential threat to this entire system. The person who thinks for themselves, who creates their own values, who dares to live according to the dictates of their own powerful and life-affirming will. This person is a walking, breathing refutation of the entire herd morality. They are the living embodiment of the evil master, the terrifying eagle that the chickens have spent 2,000 years trying to convince themselves does not and should not exist. The conflict between the independent mind and society is not a misunderstanding. It is a fundamental and irreconcilable war between two opposing life philosophies, between the morality of the master and the morality of the slave, the psychology of the last man, the apotheosis of the comfortable and the trivial. What is the ultimate goal of this herd morality? What is the ideal human being that our modern, civilized society is trying to produce? Nietzsche gave this creature a name. He called it the last man. And his description, written over a century ago, is one of the most chilling and prescient prophecies in the history of philosophy. The last man is the ultimate triumph of the herd. He is a creature who has been completely and totally domesticated. He has no great passions, no great ambitions, no great loves, and no great sorrows. His entire existence is dedicated to a single, overriding goal, the pursuit of comfort, of safety, and of a long, pleasant, and utterly meaningless life. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. The last man has no desire to create, to overcome, to become more than he is. He takes no risks. He thinks no dangerous thoughts. He is a creature of pure, unadulterated mediocrity. He works a little, he plays a little, he has his little pleasures for the day and his little pleasures for the night. He is tolerant, he is agreeable, and he is utterly, profoundly, and cheerfully empty. The world of the last man is a world without suffering, but it is also a world without greatness. It is a world without art, without philosophy, without heroism, without saints. It is a world that has been flattened, leveled, and sanitized of every last trace of the wild, tragic, and beautiful spirit of humanity. This is the world we are now relentlessly and systematically building. Our obsession with safetyism, our pathologizing of every form of psychological discomfort, our relentless pursuit of the frictionless life, our celebration of the shallow and the trivial. This is all the work of the spirit of the last man. We have become a society that is terrified of the very things that make a life great: risk, struggle, passion, and pain. The independent mind is the mortal enemy of the last man. The person who dares to think, to feel deeply, to pursue a great and difficult passion, to embrace their own suffering as a necessary part of their own becoming. This person is a terrifying and unwelcome ghost at the last man's pleasant, meaningless party. They are a living reminder of a higher, more difficult and more noble form of human existence. Their very presence is a judgment. And the last men, in their placid, blinking way, will do everything in their power to either ignore them, to ridicule them, or to cure them of their dangerous and uncomfortable greatness. To be at odds with a society of last men is not a sign of your failure. It is the only sign that your soul is still alive. The path of the Übermensch, the creation of a sovereign self. If this is the diagnosis, what is the cure? Nietzsche does not offer a comforting, easy, or universal one. He does not offer a political program or a 10-step plan. He offers something far more difficult and far more profound, a challenge. He challenges the few, the rare, the noble souls who feel this profound alienation from the modern world to not just endure it, but to embrace it as a sign of their own higher calling. He challenges them to undertake the most difficult and heroic task a human being can attempt, to become an Übermensch, a superman or overman. The Übermensch is not a political tyrant or a master of others. He is the absolute master of himself. He is the individual who has completely and totally overcome the herd morality within his own soul. He is the person who has looked into the abyss of a meaningless, godless universe and has not despaired, but has instead laughed and has taken upon himself the terrifying and joyful task of becoming his own God, the creator of his own values. The path of the Übermensch is a path of radical and relentless self-overcoming. It is the path of the three metamorphoses that Nietzsche describes in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. First, the spirit must become a camel. The camel is the reverent spirit, the one who takes on the heaviest burdens. It is the spirit that has the discipline and the courage to master all the knowledge of the past, to say yes to the difficult and the demanding. But the camel is not the end. In the loneliest desert, the camel must become a lion. The lion is the spirit of rebellion, the one who says a sacred no to the thou shalt of the herd morality. It is the spirit that destroys the old slave values to create a space for its own freedom. But even the lion is not the end. The lion must become a child. The child is the spirit of the new beginning, of innocent, joyful, and spontaneous creation. The child is the one who says a sacred yes to life, who plays the game of creation for its own sake. The child is the Übermensch. This is not a path that can be taught. It can only be lived. It is a path of profound and almost unbearable loneliness. The one who walks this path must be willing to abandon the comfort and the safety of the herd entirely. They must be willing to be misunderstood, to be hated, to be seen as a monster by the good people. They must, as Nietzsche wrote, be a sea to receive a polluted stream without becoming impure. They must practice the art of amor fati, the love of one's fate. They must learn to say yes, not just to the pleasant parts of life, but to all of it. The pain, the struggle, the loss, the suffering. They must see that all of it, the good and the bad, is necessary, is essential, is the very material out of which their own greatness is forged. They do not wish for a different life. They wish for this life, exactly as it is, over and over again, for all eternity. This is the ultimate affirmation of the will to power. And they must find their joy, not in the placid, blinking happiness of the last man, but in the ecstatic, creative, and often painful joy of perpetual self-overcoming. Their life is not a pursuit of a final, static state of being. It is a work of art, a beautiful, tragic, and magnificent drama that they are constantly and consciously creating out of the raw, chaotic, and amoral material of their own powerful nature. The warning and the hope. The future of the human spirit. Nietzsche's philosophy is not a prophecy of doom. It is a warning, and it is a hope. The warning is this: we are at a great and terrible turning point in the history of the human spirit. The forces of the herd, of the last man, of the comfortable and the mediocre, are more powerful than they have ever been. They threaten to create a world of unprecedented safety, of unprecedented comfort, and of unprecedented soul-crushing meaninglessness. They threaten to extinguish the very possibility of human greatness. But the hope is this: the independent mind, the noble soul, the spirit that is at odds with this world, is not a mistake. It is the only thing that can save us. Nietzsche did not write for the masses. He wrote for the exceptions. He wrote for the few who feel the divine discontent, who feel the lion stirring within them, who know in their bones that they were born for something more than a life of quiet, comfortable, and meaningless servitude. If you are one of these people, you must understand that your conflict with society is not a problem to be solved. It is a destiny to be embraced. You are not sick. You are being called to a higher form of health. You are not a failure. You are being called to a more difficult and more noble form of success. You must have the courage to turn away from the marketplace of empty approval, to abandon the desperate and demeaning quest to be liked by a world you do not respect. You must have the courage to be lonely. You must have the courage to be misunderstood. You must have the courage to be the enemy of the good people. You must, in essence, become a warrior of the spirit. You must build your own inner fortress, your own sanctuary of the soul, high above the frantic chattering and deeply sick world of the herd. You must become your own teacher, your own priest, and your own God. This is the great and terrible freedom that the independent mind is called to. It is the most difficult path a human being can walk, but it is the only path that leads to a life that is not just lived, but is created, is affirmed, and is, in the end, truly and magnificently worthy of the name. The world of the sheep may be comfortable, but the sky belongs to the eagles, and the sky is calling your name.